Greetings. Hope everyone's doing well. In this video, we're going to be discussing about the exclusive right to lease contract for commercial properties. You would use this particular document, this contract, if you're going to be taking upon a listing, a commercial listing. Maybe you have a client that is renting an office space or maybe a warehouse bay. Something commercial related. This is not for residential. This particular video on contract, this is going to be something related to commercial properties such as an office space, a warehouse bay, maybe a retail store, in a shopping plaza, something of that nature and similar, something commercial related. So we'll get straight into the video. Before we do, our company's Nizz Realty Inc. This video is discussing contracts, within the state of Florida. That's the only state we're licensed in at this time of making this video. Perhaps we'll have more in the future, but for right now, we're discussing state of Florida contracts. More information about our brokerage is listed below. We're 100% commission brokerage. We pay our agents 100% of their real estate commission. You can see all that information in the description at the bottom of this video, but if you want more information, go there, give us a call. For right now, let's get straight into this contract and discuss it for those who are here and interested in this video. So let's begin. There's a few pages here. Let's start off at the top here and just get straight into it. The owner, put the owner's name up here. Let's say the owner today is Billy Bob. And the broker you're going to put the company name here. You can also put your name how I'm going to show you. So where it says broker, you're going to put your company name. So say, just assume you're an agent of Nizz Realty Inc. You put your full company name there, Nizz Realty Inc. And then what I like to do, since you're the listing agent, put your name there as well. So let's say the listing agent is Susan Doe as listing agent, or listing rep. Listing agent's good. Listing associate, listing realtor. One of those terms. Listing agent, we'll leave it as there. I like to do this just to have, my name stated on the contract, that even though, yes, this is the brokerage I work for, which you have to put the company name there, but I also like to put my name there to explain that I'm the listing agent for this particular property. This is my listing, my client. So that's what you can put there. That's my professional and personal advice as far as putting your name there. Let's move on to the next part here. The terms. The authority to lease the contract. Let's say the date of making this video is 5th of May 2022. Let's say we're doing a 1-year agreement. Like I explained in all of my other videos, what you want to do is, if you're doing it for 1 year, a lot of mistakes I see is realtors will put May 5th 2023. It's technically wrong. It's supposed to be, and if it's a 1 year, it's supposed to end the 1 day behind. So it's supposed to be the 4th at 11:59 p.m. That's when it's supposed to expire. Not this. You don't put the 5th and then the 5th. That's a very common mistake. You're supposed to put 1 day behind. So if it's let's say the 16th of May, you're going to want to put it on the 15th for when it expires. Similar if it's on January 22nd. The 21st of next year is when it should expire. A very common mistake. Just keep that in mind so you're doing it the right way. I'm going to show you in my videos how to do it the right way, and hopefully you take note of that and do it. So that's the correct way to do it. A 1-year lease expiring next year, the day behind the 4th. Let's move on to the next part. The street address. Simple enough. Put the street address. You just put, the simple street address, the legal description. You probably just paste the legal description here. If it's a really big legal description, you could say, like in our other videos, see Exhibit A, and then you could attach a separate document with this contract that says Exhibit A, pertaining to this contract. This is the address, and this is the full legal description. Sometimes legal description is massive. So you could create a separate exhibit and accompany it with this document, and you have it written here, see Exhibit A for a legal description. So let's say for this particular video, we have an Exhibit A which has the legal description. This is one thing you could do if it doesn't fit in the line here, just to look professional. Personal property, anything that's included. If it's a commercial property, maybe there's, like it says here, some machinery, inventory, supplies, maybe it's a retail space and there's Maybe there's some cash registers that's being included with the rental. Maybe it's a warehouse bay for, let's say, an auto body shop. Maybe there's some type of I'm not a mechanic or an automobile equipment type of stuff. Maybe there's some tools. Maybe there's an inventory of, power tools or something like that, things to work on automobiles. You could list that here. If it's something big, like a huge list of things, you could do, once again, see Exhibit B, create a separate exhibit. You could take pictures within the Exhibit B, have a pictures accompanying that document. It could be several pages Exhibit B. You'd have Exhibit B, page 1 through 25, and maybe you have a whole list of things pertaining to the business. Maybe it's a retail space and there's a lot of retail things being offered with it, safes or anything like that for the tenant to use. So you could do that. Let's say that for the purpose of this video, we'll have a separate Exhibit B that lists an inventory for whatever it may be. Let's say a warehouse bay, and this is for automobile equipment and such. The next thing is if the property is occupied by a tenant, you could use these here. Most of the time, if you're going to be accepting a listing agreement, it'll be vacant, but that's not always true. You could be accepting a listing agreement and the current tenant, let's say if it's a warehouse bay and there's a current mechanic utilizing the facility, maybe they have a couple months left on their lease, but you have agreement with the tenant and the seller that you're going to be listing this property and advertising it, looking for a new tenant, because the current tenant is going to be leaving after the next 2 months. So you can start showing the warehouse bay, the commercial property, to new prospective tenants so that you could get a deal started, and then by the time this current tenant moves out, you could have this deal starting the lease as soon as they move out, after you take care of it, clean it up, whatever the case may be. So that can be a term. Either or of those can be the situation. Let's say for the purposes of this video, it's not occupied. If it is, you just click the is box, and then you'll just write when the lease term ends, whatever the date is when the lease ends and the current tenant's moving out. But for the purposes, an example of this video, it's not occupied by a tenant, it's vacant, we're looking for a tenant. Let's move on. Rental rate and terms. You could write here, those per square foot for a term acceptable to owner. You could check that. If you are, you should know how to do that and write in the additional terms of how much it is. Let's just say that you could put like an amount here and so forth. Usually I always put like, well, let's say it's $10,000. Yeah, you could say $10,000. You could mark the per square foot and put it in there, but usually like $10,000 per month. That's the simplest way to do it, paying monthly. If you're going to do something by like a square footage or any of those additional terms, I would suggest you talk to your broker about if you have any questions. But if you know what you're doing, then you're renting it by the square footage, and maybe there's a certain amount of space. But for the purposes of this video, let's just say it's a one warehouse bay. The square footage is already disclosed. There's just a flat rate of, let's say, $10,000 a month to use the facility. So I just put there like $10,000 per month, or you could also write even down here. Tenant will pay $10,000 per month for rent. Something like that. Keep it simple. That's the easiest way for me to explain it. Just keep it simple. So we could say it's like that, and pretty much move on to the next part of this paragraph. The broker obligations. Check mark all that apply. You're going to be using for rent signs on the property. Check mark to here. You're going to use the owner's name in connection with marketing or advertising the property. You could check mark that there. Usually I don't do that. I usually don't use this. This is me personally. This is my personal opinion and so forth. Sometimes if for commercial property, you could use signs. Let's say we're going to have a for rent sign on the property. Owner's name, I usually don't click that, but if it's applicable to what you're trying to do, then by all means click it. A lockbox system, you can. If you're going to have realtors use the lockbox system. Me personally, I like to be present, show all my properties personally, or have one of our agents that I trust show the property. Request a credit check on prospective tenants at owner's expense. You could check this, mark this box if you need to check the credit or any other information relating to the tenant. Maybe you're going to do a credit check on, use a professional company to do that. You could check mark that there. Execute a lease on behalf of the owner. I usually don't. I mean, you can do this if you're going to get power of attorney in fact and so forth to execute documents on behalf of the seller. That's what you would check this, mark this box. I usually don't do that. Then I really don't recommend doing this unless you have a very, very good rapport and a certain type of relationship with your client, the seller. So let's say, for example, this video, we're going to leave this out. We could talk about this another day in another video, but let's say we're going to have the owner sign off on, personally for everything. Compensate with cooperating brokers, except for not in the owner's best interests. I usually always check mark this. This is a good one to check. You don't want to not check that. It's highly recommended. Let's just say that. Withhold offers to lease the property once owner enters a binding lease. This is up to you. I always check mark this. If I've executed the contract, I prefer to withhold all the offers from there. If if it falls through, then I'll reach out to the previous realtors or tenants to let them know that it's back and available. But until then, I like to check mark that. And you could check mark this too. Make a final inspection and inventory check of property at conclusion of lease. So that's up to you if you're going to do that. Not necessary for this. Let's just say we're not going to do that. But if you're going to do that for the particular property, then you can. It's up to you. If there's anything other or miscellaneous, you could check mark this and write something other here. The only thing I'll say about this is keep it simple. You don't want to draft up something very complicated and long. And if you are, you might want to consider getting an attorney to do that. If you're just a real estate licensee, an agent, you want to keep it, I suggest you keep it simple here if you're going to do anything other. Don't try to make anything too complicated or sophisticated. Keep it simple. The next part here, advertising. I usually never click these boxes or have the owner initial here. Of course, they'll initial down here for receiving copy of each page, but I highly recommend you don't do these particular boxes here unless under very, very unique circumstances. And even then, if you can't advertise the property on the internet, street address, or display the property on the internet, like what's the point? What are you gonna, I'm not gonna get into that. Just I recommend, in my professional opinion, don't check mark these boxes. It just makes more liability, more difficulty, and less opportunities to secure a tenant and reach the widest audience to get the property advertised in the best possible way. So let's just keep it simple. You skip over that. Less things to do. Make your life easy. Don't worry about that. Nobody needs to sign that unless under very unique circumstances. Moving on. Here you could read this. This is all, read self-explanatory. Compensation. This is an important paragraph. This is how you get paid. So filling this out here, owner agrees to compensate broker as follows. You check mark which applies. Percentage of the net rent, percentage of the gross rent, excluding sales tax. You collect the boxes here. Whichever one of these is pertaining to you. Let's just say, for simple purposes, you could say 50% 100% of the first month's rent. Let's just say you want to do that, or let's say it's a flat fee. Then you wouldn't check that. You check flat fee, and maybe it's I don't know, maybe only $8,000 or something, or maybe it's something more. Maybe you're going to get $15,000 for this $10,000 a month rental. They're doing a 1-year lease, or a percentage of the purchase price. That's usually not what you're going to click because this is a rental. It's usually not purchase going on, but or you could click other, do something else. But for purposes of this video, let's just say we're going to get 100% of the first month's rent. But you fill out these accordingly. Talk to your broker if you have any questions. If you're doing something different, such as a percentage of the gross rent or the net rent, or a flat fee. I like to keep it simple. Usually in these rentals, you'll get 100% of the first month's rent, or you could negotiate a flat fee, one or the other. So, moving on, broker's fee is due. I like to check mark the first box. In full amount per paragraph 6A upon execution of lease, sales contract, or other transfer agreement. You can click some of these other boxes here, like occupancy, as soon as the tenant moves in and so forth. But usually what I like to do is just click the first box, and you can click occupancy. As soon as the tenant moves in and occupies the premises, rent is due. So they move in, they sign off usually a form that everything looks good, and they're beginning their lease term. They're happy. All the rent payments have been made, and then you'll take those rent payments and you'll pretty much distribute it accordingly. So let's move on here. Renewal and or extension. Owner shall also pay broker a commission in the amount to. This is for additional commission amounts. This is for usually the renewal or extension. So you'd fill out this paragraph. I recommend you fill out this paragraph. It's not required, but what this paragraph is basically discussing is, let's say you secure this tenant for a year lease. Let's say they go through the whole year lease, and then they're going to sign another year lease. Since you secured this tenant and they did that year lease, you're going to be paid another commission upon the renewal because you originally found this tenant. So every time they renew, let's say we're doing 100% of the first month's rent, 100% of the first month's rent. So after every new lease that they renew, you get 100% of the first month's rent, or an extension that they do. So this is one thing I recommend to do, so you keep getting paid if they keep renewing the lease. But if the owner doesn't want to do this, then you negotiate accordingly from there. You don't have to fill this out. Let's say for the purposes of this example that we've secured this tenant and we're going to be getting 100% of the first month's rent every time they renew the lease. So if they rent this warehouse bay for 5 years, that's going to be 5 rent payments throughout that 5-year interval. So you're going to get that 100% of the first month's rent, which was what was it, $10,000, I believe. Yeah, 10,000. So 10,000 every year, every time they renew it. So you fill that out accordingly with your listing and what you're looking to do. I recommend it. Expansion. In the event any lease amendment is executed expanding the area covered by the lease, owner shall pay to broker a commission in the amount equal to % of compensation option selected in paragraph 6A of this agreement for such expansion as additional leasing commission. So as it says in this paragraph, if the expanding area basically is really talking about, like, I guess more of the premises is being leased, then you're going to be the broker is going to be compensated more of a percentage. I'm not going to really go into this. This is something that's doesn't happen often, but if it does, I suggest if you're with our brokerage, contact me and I could discuss it. Or if you're in another company just watching this video, contact your broker if you need to want to fill that out. Most of the time, I usually just leave that blank. If there's like an expansion and so forth, I don't really like to get into all that and try to get more money out of maybe more square footage being leased and so forth. That's something that's very unique. I usually leave this blank, but if you want to fill that out, suggest talking to your broker as far as what to put there. And really, at the end of the day, it's whatever you want to put there. It could be 20%, 10%, 50%. It's whatever's agreed upon. Next paragraph, protection period. Owner agrees to pay broker's fee if within X amount of days after the ending of lease period, owner leases the property to any prospects with whom broker or any other broker communicated with during the lease period. Leasing period regarding leasing the property. This is before I read the rest of the paragraph, it's just the protection period from, tenants and that you've found prior and so forth, or when this contract cancels. So you can put whatever amount here, 30 days if you want. I always like to put 90 days. 90 or 180 days is usually what I like, 3 months to 6 months. So let's say for purposes of this video, let's just stick with 90 days, keep it simple. This is not too complicated. It's just a protection period from being compensated if, any tenants secure the property after, the lease or the contract expires. So 90 days is good. Keep it simple. If you have further questions about that, you can talk to your broker or contact us. But it's simple. 90 or 180 days is my personal recommendation. Moving on. Cooperation with other brokers, as discussed here. So the last part pretty much is just arbitration. I always recommend signing this. Have all the owners initial it. Have yourself, the listing agent, initial it. Have your broker initial it. I always recommend this. It's just a good liability practice. You can read through this paragraph about what arbitration is and so forth. I'm not going to get into that, but just my advice, professional opinion and advice is initial this. Don't leave it blank. Dispute resolution. This is a good paragraph to initial for liability purposes. Additional clauses, we're not going to get into that, but if there's any additional clauses and so forth, you could write something here. The only thing I'll say about this is keep it simple. Try not to do anything too complicated and difficult. And if you are or need to, you may want to consult an attorney and so forth. Keep it simple. Other than that, have the owners, the sellers, execute it and date it. Have yourself, the authorized associate, broker, date it and sign it, initial every page, and that is the exclusive right to lease commercial. This particular document is used for leasing commercial assets. So this is how you'd fill it out. If you have any questions about it, of course you can contact, write in the comments below. But this is how you'd fill this out. It's not too complicated. A few things to discuss here. The only other thing I could see here that wasn't really discussed is it doesn't really discuss if you find another cooperating broker. It talks about the fee due to you, your broker, your brokerage, which is 100% of the first month's rent. You could also, it says cooperation with other brokers. It is broker's policy to cooperate with all other brokers as broker deems advisable. What I'd recommend you do is you can click other and then maybe say that you're willing to pay what you put here. Basically, you want to state that you're giving up a portion of the commission to another cooperating broker. I guess I'm not gonna write anything here, but basically, you can contact me or write in the comments below if you're interested in it. But basically, you'd formulate a quick sentence basically stating that if there's any other cooperating brokers, you're willing to pay, let's say, 50% of the first month's rent as a commission to them. So your commission is 100% of the first month's rent. Let's say if another broker gets involved and brings a tenant, you're going to compensate that cooperating broker with 50% of the first month's rent. So you'll give them half of your commission, or really you could give them anything, 60%, 40%. You could give them whatever you deem necessary. And you could put it here in the other mark here and basically state something here. Write a quick sentence stating that that's what you'll pay to a cooperating broker. Keep it simple. So that's the one thing I could definitely recommend with this contract is to be willing to compensate another tenant's realtor if they get involved. It's nice to compensate them. They do work for a living, so give them something of the commission. The second thing is I didn't see anywhere in this particular document that discusses your brokerage relationship. I recommend operating as a transaction broker. We don't really recommend operating as a single agency. So there's a separate form that we have. It's called the transaction broker notice. You would just just put your company name on it and sign it. I believe it's in one of our other videos. If you're with our brokerage, we have our own in-house form for that. So that's the only two things I recommend. You could also get one maybe from your company too. So the first thing is in this contract is anything extra is compensate a cooperating broker by here and the other, and also get a transaction broker notice form to disclose that you're operating as a transaction broker. Unless you're going to operate as a single agency relationship, I always recommend to operate as a transaction broker, so you can work with any of the tenants and the and work with the landlord. It's just a liability thing, and it just makes life easier. Operate as a transaction broker. My recommendation. You don't have to, but I highly suggest it. Other than that, I'm going to end this video here. Don't want to be talking too long. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, comments below, contact us. Hope it was helpful. Pleasure speaking with y'all, and see you in the next one.